You paid your homeowner's insurance for 20 years, but now your house is damaged and your insurance adjuster has disappeared on you. When disaster strikes, no one should have to fight an insurance company alone. That's where Avner Gatt and his team of public adjusters comes in. Unlike the insurance adjuster who works for the insurance company, a public adjuster works exclusively for you. It's their job to document your loss, negotiate on your behalf, and make sure the insurance company pays you every single dollar you deserve. Avner Gatt and his team bring years of experience, industry knowledge, and a deep understanding of how insurance companies operate. They know every trick the insurance companies use, and they know how to win. Call Avner today for a free initial consultation and an extensive network of experts ready to immediately assess your damages. From start to finish, Avner's team manages your entire claim so you can focus on rebuilding and moving forward with your life. Don't let your insurance company dictate the future of your claim. Call 818-917-5256 or visit avnergatt.com today. 818-917-5256. Avner Gatt, your claim, our game.
Good afternoon. We're getting right down to business here. Yep, we're doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after the Guy Benson Show and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz. Stay tuned at 6 o'clock this evening for The Way Home radio show and podcast presented by the Union Rescue Mission. I'll be back on the air at 6 o'clock this evening, every Thursday evening at 6 with Mark Hood, the CEO of the Union Rescue Mission. Tonight, guests include Angela Bassett and Courtney B. Vance, who will be honored by Union Rescue Mission at the upcoming 135th anniversary URM Gala next month. Right now, you have Motec on Money. We're live on the air on 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com. And, yep, the on-demand Motec on Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, all your favorite podcast platforms. Stocks taking a breather after a two-day run-up today with investors considering some corporate earnings reports and also what's happening in the Middle East with a run-up in oil prices this week. The Dow came in for a closing loss of 267 points. The S&P 500 down 19, and the NASDAQ gave back 71. We have seen the price of oil move higher this week, driven by the military buildup in the Middle East ahead of a possible strike on Iran this weekend. We'll talk more about that this hour. Brent crude in London did extend this week's leap and around $72 a barrel now. In New York, we're looking at oil just shy of $67 a barrel. The regional deployment of U.S. aircraft and other military hardware, including naval assets, including the biggest aircraft carriers, raising the risk the U.S. could attack Iran's nuclear program or missile stockpile, possibly this weekend, according to various reports. Analysts say Iran could close the world's busiest oil thoroughfare, the Strait of Hormuz, in response, which they did for a time earlier this week. Walmart stock in the spotlight, erasing gains from earlier in the session that came after Walmart reported strong sales growth. Latest report on the trade deficit shows it jumped above $70 billion in December, partly due to big swings caused by international gold trading. We see gold back above $5,000 an ounce today. Silver, by the way, is back above $78 an ounce. Blue Owl ruffling some feathers today. Shares of the Wall Street private credit firms extended recent declines after Blue Owl rattled the industry by restricting withdrawals from a fund aimed at ordinary investors. Blue Owl is a publicly traded company, pulling back 73 cents at the close to $11.58. Tomorrow could be a big day at the U.S. Supreme Court. Various reports indicate the U.S. Supreme Court may rule as soon as tomorrow on the legality of a large part of President Trump's tariff agenda. The president has used emergency powers under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to impose tariffs broadly on trading partners. Remains to be seen how the Supreme Court will rule on this. President Trump delivering a strong support, a strong message of support and confidence that the tariffs should be held in place. Also tomorrow, looks like we'll get a new report on the economy. The GDP number likely to show a 2.5% annual growth rate in the fourth quarter, according to the latest estimates from economists polled by the Wall Street Journal. The Journal also reporting President Trump is weighing an initial limited military strike on Iran to force it to meet his demands for a nuclear deal, a first step that would be designed to pressure Tehran into an agreement, but falls short of a full-scale attack that could inspire a major retaliation. We'll talk about the latest news on that with Lisa Daftari, Middle East expert and editor of the Foreign Desk. Mortgage rates have come down this week. We'll get an update on how 2026 is shaping up in the real estate and mortgage business. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it with Jeff Lazerson, the president of MortgageGrader.com, also Orange County Register real estate columnist. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, and the whole works now. Joining us live, the one and only Daniel Ives, the top tech analyst in the world, managing director and global head of technology research at Wedbush Securities, which happens to be based right here in Southern California. Daniel Ives, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Yeah, great to talk, Frank, as always.
Wonderful to have you with us. We did see, until today, a pretty decent rebound in some of the Mag 7 names, which have been hammered lately. I know that you track them very, very closely. Give us your reaction to the latest market moves this week.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's almost a ghost trade in terms of AI, in terms of what's happening with the disruption that we're seeing on software names, on other tech names, on financials. You're going through a major sort of white knuckle moment. Look, I continue to believe next week NVIDIA, that continues to be front and center in terms of earnings from Jensen. And everything we're seeing, we're only less than a third of the way through this build out, which is why we continue to be very bullish. And this is just a sort of speed bump that we're seeing.
What do we need to know about this Blue Owl story that came out today?
Mm-hmm. Look, as me and you have talked about, everything that's going to happen in this AI build-out is going to be hyper-analyzed. And this is another example. Like Blue Owl, obviously, they're one of the players in terms of building out Meta, in terms of some of the data centers. They basically put, call it guardrails up in terms of, one of their funds. It's a small fund relative. So I think this is one where private credit, obviously there's been a lot of issues in terms of, what we've seen people trying to pull out of that market, some of the liquidity. Frank, I think this is one where there's more smoke than fire, when it all plays out relative to the market. And I think the market shrugged that off pretty well relative to maybe how you would have thought early on this morning.
Absolutely. And what about, let's get back to NVIDIA for a moment, pulling back only slightly today, down 8 cents at 187 and change. What do you see ahead for NVIDIA in the important week ahead?
Look, I mean, all the $700 billion CapEx from big tech, the vast, vast majority of that, one way or another, is going through NVIDIA. So, they continue to be kind of front and center in that trade. And I think demand and supply for their chips is still over 10 to 1. So I think not just in terms of the numbers and the guidance, but hearing from Jensen about what demand looks like, not just for Blackwell, but for Rubin, which is their next-gen chip, is very, very important. Remember, this is all without China, which essentially continues to sort of be caught in this political, obviously red tape situation.
Or what's going on with Amazon and that stock getting hammered so hard this year?
I'll tell you, it's essentially a bear argument. It's a bear, not just an argument, it's a bear sort of year for Amazon. Look, I think part of it is on the cloud side, they didn't have that great of a quarter. There's some pressure on the consumer business. But Frank, I think this is one, when you look some of the parts, it's a screaming buy in my view, in terms of Amazon, our view, relative to how it plays into the AI thesis. But I think this is a barometer. Look at Microsoft, when it went sub 400. So you've seen some of these moves, Salesforce, ServiceNow. We're going through a moment where you're essentially fighting what I'll call the AI ghost trade.
Looks like Elon Musk set to become the first trillionaire in the world, with a lot happening with SpaceX and XAI and an IPO this year. How's that shaping up, and how are you preparing for that?
Yeah, and look, and we eventually think Tesla and SpaceX ultimately merge. That's sort of our view. Look, you're talking about one of the best disruptive technology companies in the world. The U.S.-based program essentially, rides on SpaceX. But I think this just shows what Musk is doing. Musk is essentially creating his own AI ecosystem between XAI and SpaceX and Tesla. And look, I think it speaks to, despite the white knuckles to start the year, there's a lot of these companies that could go public, Anthropic, OpenAI, and others.
Where do you see Tesla stock go from here? We're looking at it just shy of 412 here at the moment.
600 base case. That's our, we've talked about bull case 800, but look, when it comes to autonomous and robotics, this is going to be the most important year ever for Musk. And I think it just shows what's happened with robotaxis. And it's about physical AI. And the two best physical AI plays in the world are Tesla and NVIDIA.
Let's get to some of the exciting stuff here. Gold and silver, which have outperformed cryptos this year. Gold above 5,000 again, silver at around 78 here, 78 an ounce. Give us your thoughts on the precious metals.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's obviously a lot of volatility, with the Warsh appointment for the Fed in terms of what that means for QT and, and obviously for rates. Look, silver obviously in the near term got ahead of itself, but also given how weak crypto's been, you could argue net that that's bullish for copper, gold, silver.
All right, let's talk about cryptos now. Bitcoin at around 66.9 at the moment. Ethereum just below 2,000 here, 1949. Doge at 9 cents. What about the latest price action here this week on those cryptos?
Yeah, I mean, look, you're going through essentially a crypto winter, right? I mean, this is a bear market for crypto that, ultimately I think will be short-lived, but this is, I think, an extremely nervous time that you're seeing in the crypto world. Now, I was at a crypto conference last week in New York, and everyone's just waiting to see stabilization here. And I think you will see it, but right now it's kind of a do not enter zone as a trade perspective. And I think that, especially institutional and leverage and what we're seeing in the tech trade, it speaks to this kind of risk off that we've seen to start the year.
What are you hearing from Michael Saylor from Strategy, who has that big Bitcoin exposure and is sitting on a tremendous unrealized loss, but appears to be buying the dip again? And then Thomas Lee with Bitmine Immersion, which is focused on Ethereum, which has also taken a hit, also sitting on large unrealized losses at the moment. What are you hearing from those folks?
Look, I think if you've seen what Saylor has talked about on his earnings call, I mean, he's not backing away. Like, Saylor's view is much longer term. And I think it's no different than what we see from Bitcoin to Ethereum. I mean, you have to have a longer term view, but you're seeing this sell-off, and it's compounded by what we're seeing in terms of some of the leverage in the system. But look, ultimately, if you go back a year ago, you go back 2 years ago, we've been through these periods, whether it's tech or crypto, many times.
President Trump talking up the market, of course. He mentioned the Dow at 50K again during his big speech today. Where do you see the major averages go this year?
Look, I think tech stocks will be up net 20% for the year. And obviously tech started already down, call it 3-4%. You've started the year shaky. But I think it just speaks to and I actually think it's less about geopolitical or Iran. It's really more related to the AI trade. I think that is something that continues because you need leadership with tech in this market. And leadership's not going to come from other sectors. And that's why you've seen this kind of tread water and to be soft in terms of starting the year across the market.
There are definitely some wild cards out there, including the report in the Wall Street Journal. You probably saw it regarding possible U.S. plans on Iran, which certainly is going to make the front pages, and already the price of oil in anticipation of some of this moving higher this week. What do you see ahead with oil and possible U.S. action in the Middle East?
Yeah, I think investors and I think Wall Street has anticipated this, right, in one way or another, depending on the scope and the scale of the attack. And I think that you see the market's reaction today based on, if this happens in the next few days or next 10 days, or if it's just a game of negotiation with Iran. But the market is not going to be caught way off guard by this.
We're also watching what's happening with the price of oil, which has been ticking higher. Obviously, that is a key thing that impacts inflation as well. What do you see on the inflation front and also the economic growth number that we're going to be getting tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, it's still a little hot in terms of inflation, but it's still sub 3%. And obviously right now, you're not expecting any cuts. Warsh comes on, once you go to the actual nomination process. You'll have cuts this year, call it 2 to 4 cuts, throughout the rest of the year. And I think that is really going to be the focus but inflation pretty sort of, I think stabilization is the right term. And investors are trying to figure out with the new Fed chair, they're trying to feel him out. But that's also been some of the big moves we've seen from crypto to gold to silver.
And tomorrow we understand the Supreme Court might have a ruling on the president's tariffs. The president today defended these tariffs rather aggressively. What do you think is going to happen tomorrow?
Look, I mean, and obviously, we'll see if it happens tomorrow, but I think administration is going to find ways around it, even if the Supreme Court rules against. I mean, I think they're prepared. The tariffs are something that is one of their biggest tools, and they're definitely going to have to sort of go to the drawing board if they ultimately get ruled negatively from the Supreme Court.
Spanning the globe to bring us the very latest on the Air Live with Daniel Ives, the top tech analyst in the world, who's managing director and global head of technology research at Wedbush Securities. Love that you go to all of the major events around the world, and you'll be back here, I'm sure, for the Milken Institute Global Conference coming up very, very soon. Look forward to seeing you there. In the meantime, what are some of the big takeaways at some of your other recent conferences with AI evolving so very fast and so much happening on a daily basis? Anything interesting that's caught your attention at the last conference you've attended?
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously, every week, whether it's Davos or Vegas, New York, or I'll be at another one next week. I think part of it is there's two worlds. There's a $700 billion of CapEx, a fourth industrial revolution has taken place, and the concept that an 8-year-old is not going to need a driver's license because autonomous. But then on the other hand, the fear of that is that another bubble. What does it mean about no monetization that you've seen from software? Can AI ultimately disintermediate things? I view those as more worries that will prove to be, I think, almost fictional to really not really dent the thesis. But that's why right now you're fighting, it's like an AI ghost trade. You're fighting that AI thesis that is really being viewed in a negative way, disruptively.
And figuring out whether you're dealing with a human being or not is also a big issue. I know your work at AITCO focuses on that, right? Human authentication. Tell us more about that aspect of AI, the world that we're living in now.
Well, that's all going to look. I mean, if you look at the future of AI, authentication in a world that you're going to have more agents, more robots, it's not just going to be humans. And that's the whole thesis, right? Around WorldCoin, around AITCO, is around authentication in an AI world. But it also speaks to the point that no different than what's happened with cybersecurity companies, CrowdStrike, Palo Alto. You're going to need cybersecurity. You're going to need infrastructure. You're going to need power. I'd argue the derivative beneficiaries of AI, it's not just tech. It's going to be energy, financials, healthcare. And I think that's bullish for the overall market as it continues to spread to other sectors.
Terrific, Dan. Thank you very much for the extra time this afternoon. It's always great to have you with us. Daniel Ives with Wedbush Securities right here in...
You didn't start a business just to keep the lights on. You're here to sell more today than yesterday. You're here to win. Lucky for you, Shopify built the best converting checkout on the planet. Like the just one tapping, ridiculously fast acting, sky-high sales stacking, champion of checkouts. That's the good stuff right there. So if your business is in it to win it, win with Shopify. Start your free trial today at shopify.com/win.
Most people don't realize how much of their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. experts, all backed by 24/7 U.S.-based fraud support. Other companies might just sell credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it together at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/secure. Protect yourself now at aura.com/secure.
You paid your homeowner's insurance for 20 years, but now your house is damaged and your insurance adjuster has disappeared on you. When disaster strikes, no one should have to fight an insurance company alone. That's where Avner Gatt and his team of public adjusters comes in. Unlike the insurance adjuster who works for the insurance company, a public adjuster works exclusively for you. It's their job to document your loss, negotiate on your behalf, and make sure the insurance company pays you every single dollar you deserve. Avner Gatt and his team bring years of experience, industry knowledge, and a deep understanding of how insurance companies operate. They know every trick the insurance companies use, and they know how to win. Call Avner today for a free initial consultation and an extensive network of experts ready to immediately assess your damages. From start to finish, Avner's team manages your entire claim so you could focus on rebuilding and moving forward with your life. Don't let your insurance company dictate the future of your claim. Call 818-917-5256 or visit avnergatt.com today. 818-917-5256. Avner Gatt, your claim, our game.
Southern California live with us here on Motec on Money. Motec on Money continues, 790 KBC. Good afternoon. Pullback on Wall Street in this holiday shortened week. We had a couple of up days in a row here coming off the 3-day holiday weekend, the President's Day holiday on Monday, and a couple of pretty decent up days. But today, a pullback, the Dow down 267, back to 49,395. The S&P 500 gave back 19 at 6,862, and the NASDAQ down 71 points at 22,683. Looks like the yield in the 10-year note is down to 4.07%. That's the one that impacts the fixed-rate mortgage rates, and they've come down lately. We'll get an update on that from the expert, Jeff Lazerson, the president of MortgageGrader.com, and Orange County Register real estate columnist. He'll be joining us in the next half hour. The price of gold moving higher today, back above 5,000 at 5,018 and change. Silver at the moment also higher at 78.29. The price of oil moving up on tensions in the Middle East rising. The price of oil right now in New York just below $67 a barrel, above 70 once again in London. We'll talk about what's happening in the Middle East with Middle East expert Lisa Daftari coming up in the next half hour. Turning to cryptos now, we see a Bitcoin up, down about 160 at 66,900 or so. Ethereum, ETH at 1,949. Doge at the moment at 9 cents. Motec Money continues, 790 KBC. We haven't seen a spike in oil prices this week. The Wall Street Journal reports President Trump is weighing an initial limited military strike on Iran to force it to meet his demands for a nuclear deal, a first step that would be designed to pressure Tehran into an agreement, but falls short of a full-scale attack that could inspire a major retaliation. According to the Journal, the opening assault, which if authorized could come within days, would target a few military or government sites. According to people familiar with the situation, if Iran still refuses to comply with the president's directive to end its nuclear enrichment, the U.S. would respond with a broad campaign against regime facilities potentially aimed at toppling the Tehran regime. According to the Journal, the first limited strike option, which has not been previously reported, signals President Trump might be open to using military force not only as a reprimand for Iran's failure to make a deal, but also to pave the way for a U.S.-friendly agreement. Meanwhile, the Russian foreign minister, in an interview made public this week, said that any new U.S. strike on Iran would have serious consequences and called for restraint to find a solution to enable Iran to pursue a peaceful nuclear program. Following all of these latest developments closely, joining us live now is Middle East expert Lisa Daftari, Middle East expert and editor of the Foreign Desk. Lisa, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
My pleasure to be with you.
Give us your reaction to these latest reports.
Yeah, we know things are escalating pretty quickly, but this is the foreign policy of Donald Trump, the foreign policy of ambiguity, where every option is on the table. In his first term, he had a maximum pressure campaign against Iran's regime, which worked tremendously well to diminish the campaign, but wasn't designed to lead to regime change. We have seen in the 12-day war that we saw last June with the collaborative efforts between Israel and the United States, military attacks against the regime's nuclear facilities, that it was designed to set them back in their nuclear ambitions. But again, they picked up and started working towards that again. Now we are at the negotiations table where we're only addressing their nuclear activity. We are not addressing ballistic missiles. We're not addressing their funding of proxies, terror proxies, and we're not talking about their killing of protesters and human rights abuses, which they have been known for decades. So there is really no good deal to be had with this regime. There's no changing of the regime's DNA, which is what would take to have a good deal. And I know that President Trump understands that this is an opportune moment that he cannot squander, where the regime is at its weakest point that it has ever been economically, militarily, and in terms of its export of proxies and terrorism and so forth, its influence in the region and beyond.
What's your reaction to Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz briefly earlier this week and new threats to do it again? We've already seen the price of oil spike, and also a Russian warship reportedly arrived at the Strait of Hormuz this week, in fact, docked at an Iranian port.
Yeah, playing with fire, literally and figuratively. They have been saber-rattling for decades, and this is nothing more than that. 2 assassination attempts against our president, chanting death to America and burning American flags since 1979, since the inception of this regime. And of course, this week, making more verbal threats, and of course, closing the Strait of Hormuz, which is more of a symbolic threat to choke off its influence economically on the global stage. This is, they cannot put up a fair contest against the U.S. and or Israel combined. But they will do what they can. And I remind people that this is not a suicidal regime. They have used their ideology to last, to extend their influence and to extend their longevity, but they will not die by this ideology, meaning they will fire every single ballistic missile, they will use every weapon in their arsenal, and they will do what they can to maintain power. And I think that is one of the reasons why we haven't seen military intervention just yet. This is a long-time setup of missile defense capabilities in the region, our assets in the region. Israel, of course, having to do the same as we saw in the 12-day war. There were casualties. They did fire ballistic missiles from Tehran, and we're expecting the same. The Washington doesn't believe they're going to get a good deal out of this regime, and I think it's more of a question of when and not if at this point.
And Russia taking a higher profile in all of this with that movement of the warship, and also they're doing joint military exercises with Iran, right? Any additional details about what's happening there?
Yeah, we just heard a couple hours ago that Russia has informed the Iran regime that the United States is looking to launch its military campaign sooner rather than later, and it will be in the next few hours, if not days. As I tweeted, Russia has entered the chat. I mean, Russia is exerting the minimal amount of influence here. I don't think China or Russia will come to the Islamic Republic's aid at this point. We remember they are not actual allies, but they are allies in interest only. They're interest-aligned allies, which means that they are, opportunists who are looking to use each other when they can. They are all marginalized from the global economy, and therefore, use each other when it's necessary. But I think they all have their hands tied, and they are, worried about their own issues at the moment. I don't think they're going to be coming to the Islamic Republic's aid in a significant way that would deter the United States or Israel from moving forward.
More horrific scenes when we do see them, always horrific on the crackdown of civilians in Iran, and reports that people are being killed in their hospital beds, and all kinds of horrific reports. What's the latest on what's happening internally in Iran based on the latest reports you're seeing?
Yeah, more executions and more threats, shooting against people who are out mourning or burying their loved ones. This is, again, more of the same. The Achilles heel of this regime has always been the people of Iran standing up in a significant way in a grassroots effort like we're seeing on the streets of Iran, and they will do anything to stop them. There have been directives to shoot at groups of 5 or more who are walking. They can be going to the movies or trying to get ice cream, and they will shoot at them because they do not want these groups to form. They don't want these protests to form. And of course, the Iranian people are more courageous, more brave than ever to sacrifice their lives, literally their lives, in order to have freedom, to get the country back that their parents and grandparents lost 47 years ago. So we're seeing a beautiful display of that bravery, of that courage, and we wish them the best in this endeavor.
On the air live with Lisa Daftari, and we saw a tremendous display of support for Iran over the weekend, right? You were part of all of that. Tell us about what happened here in Los Angeles in the Persian community and what you told the crowd there.
Massive groups of protests in all of around the world. We saw them in Germany, of course, in Munich, where Reza Pahlavi, the son of the exiled Shah of Iran, spoke. And of course, in Canada and here in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C., in all the cities, about 500,000 people gathering in order to show support for Reza Pahlavi. He is the one who told them to go out on February 14th and to support the Iranian protesters. So millions of people out on the streets in the expatriate world to support the protests inside Iran. Many people, many expats and those who support them around the world do believe and do see this as the most opportune moment to get the country back, to get rid of this occupying force, which is the Islamic Republic. I remind people it's as if ISIS would take over Canada or the United States and become its formal recognized government. So you don't see a people of 90 million, the majority of whom are asking for military intervention on its own soil in order to get rid of this cancerous regime that is ruling them. So for 47 years, we have this generational fight. It's across socioeconomic brackets, across generations, across genders, and all sorts of ethnic backgrounds on the ground in Iran who are united in this cause to topple the regime, majority of whom who are calling for Reza Pahlavi, the son of the Shah, to come back and become their transitional leader, to get them to fair elections, to determine the future of Iran under a free leader and somebody who understands the people of Iran and will represent them in the right way.
On the line with Lisa Daftari, certainly the Shah's son, Reza Pahlavi, taking a higher profile around the world with high-level meetings and appearances, you mentioned in Munich, as well as meeting with world leaders. What do you see ahead, his possible role in what happens next?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's somebody who has been entrusted with, carrying the torch of the Iranian people. You see such a nostalgia, even on the ground in Iran, for people who, like myself, were born after the revolution, but have these, thoughts and ideas and visions of this nostalgia of their parents' stories, their grandparents' stories, what they've seen, a freer Iran 47 years ago, and they're calling upon him to go back. And it's nice to see that the global community, leaders in Europe and in the United States, are meeting with him, understanding and recognizing him as a legitimate transitional leader to take Iran into the next chapter. I know there's a knee-jerk reaction in Washington, D.C., and for the right reasons, to the term regime change, because we've never done it properly, but Reza Pahlavi and his supporters reminding Washington, D.C. that not all regime changes are created equal, and there is a possibility of having a proper regime change without creating a political vacuum when we have the day after plan, a plan for what will happen if the regime should fall, and what Reza Pahlavi can do in that role to take the Iranian people into the next chapter. So it is the first time that we're seeing this level of unity and the rallying around Reza Pahlavi as the transitional figure. You see his picture and the slogans on the streets of Iran calling for him, remembering his father fondly, his grandfather fondly, and believing that he is the one person who is the legitimate heir to this country and can take them forward to at least get free elections. And then at that point, they can determine their own future ahead.
Lisa Daftari, Middle East expert, editor of the Foreign Desk. We'll keep an open line to you with some important days ahead here. We'll continue to follow your social media feeds on X and other sources. Lisa Daftari, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You paid your homeowner's insurance for 20 years, but now your house is damaged and your insurance adjuster has disappeared on you. When disaster strikes, no one should have to fight an insurance company alone. That's where Avner Gatt and his team of public adjusters comes in. Unlike the insurance adjuster who works for the insurance company, a public adjuster works exclusively for you. It's their job to document your loss, negotiate on your behalf, and make sure the insurance company pays you every single dollar you deserve. Avner Gatt and his team bring years of experience, industry knowledge, and a deep understanding of how insurance companies operate. They know every trick the insurance companies use, and they know how to win. Call Avner today for a free initial consultation and an extensive network of experts ready to immediately assess your damages. From start to finish, Avner's team manages your entire claim so you could focus on rebuilding and moving forward with your life. Don't let your insurance company dictate the future of your claim. Call 818-917-5256 or visit avnergatt.com today. 818-917-5256. Avner Gatt, your claim, our game.
The expectation and the norm is to win, and that is what we will be able to do here. I believe in the power of UCLA.
It's a new day for UCLA football with new head coach Bob Chesney taking charge, and we need you to be a part of it. The right man is at the helm in Westwood, and the time is now for you to put your support behind the Bruins. UCLA football is ready to win, and we can't wait to see you this fall. Visit UCLABruins.com/tickets for more info on how to secure your seats for the 2026 season. Go Bruins!
This isn't your average podcast.
Do you like party?
I do like a huge chug of tequila.
The Howlerhead whiskey bottle chug in front of Dana White. That was the first time we ever went to LA. We somehow got into a Diddy party. What's an Elon Musk house party look like?
My parties generally have very high production value.
This is Full Send.
I do want to do a lot more pranks. Bunch of different pranks.
Join the party.
Jack Doherty in the house.
Feeling good, man. What are we going to talk about with Will Smith?
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
Shout out to Theo Vaughn.
It's been entertaining, dude.
The Full Send podcast.
Grab the boys, grab the beers. Let's do it.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Thank you very much. Motaca Money continues here in 790 KABC. Mortgage rates have come down, and looks like so have the number of billionaires here in California. Have you seen this latest headline here? Hollywood legend Steven Spielberg, who lives in Brentwood, becomes the latest billionaire to ditch California ahead of the proposed wealth tax here in the state. The Hollywood legend is the latest billionaire to escape California ahead of the hefty proposed wealth tax. This after other high net worth individuals, such as Meta's Mark Zuckerberg and Google co-founder Sergey Brin, also fled the Golden State recently. Following all of this closely, joining us live now is Jeff Lazerson, the president of MortgageGrader.com, also Orange County Register real estate columnist. Jeff, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Thanks, Frank. Good to be here with you.
Likewise.
Mortgage.
Yeah, it's been a while since we chatted behind live microphones. So, give us an update on how the mortgage rates are looking, first of all.
Oh, fabulous. I mean, they haven't been this low in 3.5 years. September 22 was the last time the Freddie Mac rate was at 6.01%. So things have come way down. Locally, the 30-year fix is at 5.5% at one point cost. I haven't said that in ages. 15-year fix is under 5%. It's at 4 7/8% at one point cost. And then the high balance loan, so that's anything over $832,750 up to $1,249,125 in LA and Orange County. That's at 5 7/8 on a 30-year, and a 15 years at 5.5%. Jumbo loan is under 6% at 5 7/8. So we are just cooking.
See you tonight. Read about it tomorrow, but hear it now on Motac on Money, live on the air with Jeff Lazerson, president of MortgageGrader.com and OC Register real estate columnist. Jeff, where do you see the rates go from here?
Well, they're sliding down, so it's looking good. I'd say they're going to come down a little bit more. Who knows? Maybe the big miracle, we might be quoting under 5% pretty soon again. I mean, the way they keep sliding down, it's fabulous. I mean, it's really fabulous, and the phones are all lit up again, and the business is just kind of crazy good again. It's like the olden days. January was just wildly successful. In February, there's a lot of people out there wanting to get pre-approved for loans. I mean, I have just a stack of people all ready to buy a house or just looking to find the right one. So market is good and rates are coming down some more.
All right. Is it those mortgage rates that are spurring this activity, or is it home prices coming down?
I don't really see the home prices coming down much. I mean, the Inland Empire a little bit more, but and maybe a little tiny bit in LA, but Orange County I think is pretty firm. And the bits that they're coming down, it's not like they're sliding down. They're just coming down a hair. But what's going to happen is this lower interest rate situation is going to counterbalance that, and you will see prices firm up again, because as rates come down, you have more affordability, people can buy more, and then that creates this demand situation again, and prices rise because more people are out making, there's multiple offers on a lot of properties again. So you'll see prices firm up real soon.
On the air live with Jeff Lazerson, and what's your reaction to the billionaire tax, this proposed wealth tax that's causing billionaires to bolt California?
Well, I think the whole thing is just terrible, because it's like, what are you going to do? Tax everybody to death? It's like anybody that's moving or anything that's moving, you're going to tax them. And I get that the billionaires, they have more money than the rest of us, but
we're spending too much money as a state. We got to stop this stuff. It's just crazy. We're the most taxed state in the union, and it's just got to end somewhere. And this is not the answer to tax more.
And, of course, the ongoing recovery continues in the fire-scarred areas of Malibu and the Palisades and Altadena. And hope everybody's holding up in this latest storm with rock and mudslides, of course, and flooding in those areas. What are you hearing about those areas and the painfully slow recovery that's underway?
It's the complaints are the same as they've been almost since it started. The progress is slow, and I'm getting a lot of complaints about the insurance companies that they're not doing a good job of making people whole or even getting close to, getting them whole. So I would say that's where my focus is now is just a lot of phone calls and emails from people complaining about it. And, there's nothing that I can do except write about it. But the best thing for those folks to do is talk to the state insurance commissioner's office. And then I just heard on your news show during the break that the insurance commissioner there's a lot of complaints about them not doing their job. So it's just an awful situation all the way around, because the regulator's not pushing on the insurance companies, and the insurance companies aren't doing enough to help. So not a good situation. And
you're very polite at that, Jeff. And is that what you're going to be writing about this weekend? Have you selected your column?
No, this weekend I'm actually writing about 1031 exchanges, people that have rental properties and they want to trade to another property, and there's a way to get down payment out of the departing property before you buy the replacement property. So it's a pretty interesting loan program out there for investors.
Very interesting. And how easy is it to get a mortgage nowadays?
Well, it's getting easier and easier. I was just plugging in some numbers here about what payment is, and as the house or as the mortgage rates come down, it becomes more affordable. It's just easier to do. So we don't have a minimum credit score anymore. That 620 number has gone away, and people that have like co-signers or family wealth, we're seeing a lot of generational family wealth transfers. So parents are giving their kids money, and you can get in with zero down. So as far as being easy, there's 2 or 3 really good zero down programs out there. So if you don't have money but you have income, you're good. The only people that are having a real hard time are people with really bad credit. Those are the people you can't really help. But other than that, if you want to get into a place, you can get in. It's just a question of what price you can afford.
All right. You said 620. Anything below that is a problem, though?
Well, it's a little bit of a problem, but it's not dead in the water anymore. It used to be that if you were at 619, you couldn't get a loan. Now you can get a loan at 600 or even less. So the policies are getting pretty loose and liberal to help more people out. But if you have completely bad credit, you're not going to get a loan. But in the low 600s, you could still get a loan today, which is just great.
All right, Jeff. Well, thanks for that thorough update. Appreciate it. Jeff Lazerson, the president of MortgageGrader.com, an Orange County Register real estate columnist. Be sure to check out his column this weekend. Jeff, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Thanks for having me, Frank.
Thanks very much. And stay tuned now for the 790 KBC News Blitz, followed by The Way Home radio show and podcast. I'll be back on the air this evening at 6 with Mark Hood, the CEO of the Union Rescue Mission. Guests tonight include Angela Bassett and Courtney B. Vance, who will be honored by URM at the 135th Anniversary Gala next month. 790 KBC.
You paid your homeowner's insurance for 20 years, but now your house is damaged and your insurance adjuster has disappeared on you. When disaster strikes, no one should have to fight an insurance company alone. That's where Avner Gatt and his team of public adjusters comes in. Unlike the insurance adjuster who works for the insurance company, a public adjuster works exclusively for you. It's their job to document your loss, negotiate on your behalf, and make sure the insurance company pays you every single dollar you deserve. Avner Gatt and his team bring years of experience, industry knowledge, and a deep understanding of how insurance companies operate. They know every trick the insurance companies use, and they know how to win. Call Avner today for a free initial consultation and an extensive network of experts ready to immediately assess your damages. From start to finish, Avner's team manages your entire claim so you can focus on rebuilding and moving forward with your life. Don't let your insurance company dictate the future of your claim. Call 818-917-5256 or visit avnergat.com today. 818-917-5256. Avner Gat, your claim, our game.